Welcome everyone to Series 9. It's just me today, giving Ryan a break this week. I'm really excited. We are covering Spire for this series, and we were really lucky to be able to sit down and talk with Grant Howitt, one of the designers of the game. I want to say a huge thank you to Grant, who stayed up until 3 a.m. recording with us and was still a joy to talk to. The Kickstarter for Strata, a source book for this game, will be kickstarting later this month, and we will be sure to share a link with you when it's available. International Podcast Month just wrapped up. Ryan has 2 more episodes that just released on Saturday, so you can check those out along with all of the great stuff from the past month over at internationalpodcastmonth.com and on the I Am Here, that's HEAR, podcast feed. Speaking of I Am Here, both that show and ours, along with many other great RPG podcasts, were recently featured in an article over on Polygon.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to check out some of the other recommended shows. But if you're new to our show after finding us through that article, welcome! We're really excited to show you what we can do. Network overlord James D'Amato's book comes out tomorrow. The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide is a book of exercises and prompts to help you create amazing RPG characters, which is something we are pretty sure will appeal to people who love our show. You can order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much anywhere you can get books, or you can check with your local bookstore, see if they have it in stock or if they will order it for you. One last note before we finally let you get to the show. The release of this episode marks the 6-month anniversary of our show. It has been an exciting, amazing, and inspiring experience getting to make this show and getting to interact with all of these amazing people in the RPG community. Thank you so much to all of you for your feedback, your encouragement, and most of all for your time. So with all of that out of the way, I will not waste any more of it. Let's get to the episode.
Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite systems. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode my co-host Amelia and I welcome Grant Howitt, one of the designers of the game we are discussing today, Spire, a dark fantasy role-playing game from Rowan Rook and Deckard, as well as the upcoming Kickstarter for Strata, a Spire source book.
Grant, welcome to Character Creation Cast. We're really excited that you could join us.
I'm excited to be here. I like creating characters. I often do it for games I'm not even playing in. So this is quite a thrill.
That's what our whole podcast is about. Characters we will never have to play or suffer the consequences of.
Characters that don't get that sort of dirty game all over them. You can keep them perfect and pure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you want to start by introducing yourself to our audience and tell us what you have going on?
My name is Grant Howitt. You may know me from Twitter. That's probably the easiest place to find me. I should also note, Chris Taylor is the co-author on this and all of my other products. Unfortunately, he's under the weather, couldn't make it tonight. So I am having to be twice as charismatic for both of us, but I'll do what I can. We have written Spire, which Ryan mentioned earlier. We've also got things like Honey Heist, which is a game where you play criminal bears. Goblin Quest, where you play 5 goblins each who all die. One Last Job, where you create your characters entirely through flashbacks, and Jason Statham's Big Vacation, where you have to make sure that Jason Statham has a nice holiday.
That's amazing.
It's a very high concept work.
I'm playing Spire with a group of friends right now, and
awesome.
One person did not know that you were also the author of Honey Heist, and that blew her mind that you would make this game and that game. I don't know how those
between
come from the same person.
That's fair. Yeah. So I release a single one-page game every month through my Patreon, which is really good for keeping my hand in and sort of staying vaguely present on the scene, rather than just releasing one big book every 18 months. And because I've got one page, I can afford to do stupid things like Honey Heist or what was the last one I released? Pride and Extreme Prejudice, where you play ladies of a marriageable age in their giant robot.
Oh.
Yeah, they're real good games. They're real good games.
That's amazing.
They're solid ideas. I'll give it that.
You know what? You have the courage to put those down on paper and let other people look at them. So
yes, true that.
Where the rest of us are like, I don't know.
I'm courageous is a word I'd use to describe myself, certainly for writing games about bears.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into this, and we can start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
Okay, so Spire, I will give you my official pitch, what I give to people when I try and sell them the game when they come up to my stall at a convention. So Spire is a game of fantasy rebellion and insurrection. You play dark elves in a mile-high city that's so tall and so complex that reality has started to go off in the middle like old milk. About 200 years ago, the Elfir, or High Elves, invaded, and they took it over, and they graciously allowed the dark elves to live in Spire in exchange for basically being indentured servants and living as an underclass. And so the player characters have joined the ministry of our hidden mistress, a forbidden religion, and they are effectively a terrorist organization. Fighting against the evils of the oppressive government. It's grim, but not without humor. I think there's definitely points of light and moments of hope amidst all of the arms coming off and people having to sell their families for beer money.
Goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's, so far in playing it, that's been my favorite thing about it, is that we have had some really weird and very silly moments, and then it will kind of turn a corner and it'll be very dark.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of emotional whiplash, and I kind of love it.
You want to get an emotional neck brace for Spire, certainly.
Yes.
There's a game called Monkey Drome, I think. Or yes, something along those lines. It was in Swords Without Master, I believe, one of the issues. And it's a very basic mechanic. And mechanic 1 is you have to tell a joke. And mechanic 2 is you have to do ultra-violence. And you just flop back and forth between them.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
And it's just, okay. You just cut to the chase, I understand. But yeah, we've gone for a little something like that with Spire. We're very keen on having violence with full ramifications, in that it's effective but also disgusting.
One of the things that really interests me about this game is that the setting information in this book, which is not terribly huge as RPG rulebooks go, there's a lot of information about Spire. Mm-hmm. And you have the rules for a card game that nobody really knows the rules for. And, just oh, is there another one? I feel like I maybe missed that one.
There's a fortune telling game, which is basically Gwent from The Witcher.
Oh gosh, that's so
that crops up later in the book. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, there's just, you have the names of clubs and casinos and all kinds of stuff just written in there already. Was that how long did that take to come up with all of that?
So Chris and I work really well together, and we had, thankfully, because we're not working for a publisher, we're just working for ourselves, we were able to just take as long as we needed, basically, up until we had the Kickstarter deadline weighing down on us. But we have a mate of mine on Twitter described Chris and my writing style as, what was it, ideas boss rush. Which you just have a load of ideas, go, and that's tremendously good fun to write for, because we were really not interested in talking about what happened in the past. We wanted to have a paragraph or two establishing, okay, this is why things are the way they are now, but we were far more interested in setting up what might happen tomorrow. And so that was giving people who are fallible places which you can take over or destroy or what have you. We'd much rather just sketch out something very lightly and give the name of a casino and something interesting about it, and then just pretend that it exists And then it does exist because like it's interesting. People ask about Spire and they'll be like, oh, one of the powers for one of the classes mentions understanding all languages. What languages are there in Spire? I do not know.
No,
I haven't a clue what languages there are.
All
in
of
Spire.
them.
All of them. Yes, many. But if your player takes that power as a GM, you're like, cool. Well, they want the game to be about languages, I guess. So I guess I'd better start coming up with some. And so, like, we wanted to give the ability for the GM and the players to look at what parts of the world they wanted. And also, crucially, one of the things we were really careful with Spire is to make a setting which is really dense and really fruity, like a good Christmas cake, but not one which people will be like, oh, I have to learn the whole thing before I play. Like, we want people to make it up. We want people to change it. And we work that into the mechanics of the game. It's like your version of Spire will not be the same as my version of Spire, and we've written it with that in mind.
that's really cool. It's basically you've got all of this detail, but it's still pretty much open world.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I like that about it because it feels like there's enough of a framework. Because I think that sometimes when things are too open, it's really hard to even know where to start, and you get sort of like paralyzed with indecision. And so I like when there's enough of a framework to work within, but not so much that like you have such a meta plot that you can't interact with anything because you will mess it up.
Having the ministry as the core player identity was really useful because we know what the games are going to be about. In as much as like we can envisage certain, if not the exact player actions, but certain kinds of player actions, which has made it really easy is the wrong word, but interesting to write adventures and campaign frames for Spire. In that we don't write out scenes, we have NPCs and we have things that we might like to happen, and then basically the GM's job is to take those NPCs and sort of make them kiss like dolls.
Yes.
Oh, how interesting! And you just put the players around that. It's an important tenet of most of my games is at least 60% of your NPC should be extremely kissable.
Oh, absolutely. And all games should have shopping scenes. Those are like the two things. Yes.
Yeah.
Our
hats,
first
ideally.
game of it had like a solid half hour of us picking out outfits. And I was like, this is
Brilliant.
a good game. This is how it's
100%.
supposed to go.
Yeah. There are... Oh, actually, I just realized I don't have a thing on fashions. I'm just going to put a note in. I haven't written about Spire fashions yet. I'm an idiot.
Please do that.
That'll be an excellent addition to Strata.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Which I should mention.
Yes. Well, that was my next question here. So because there's so much in here already, what else are you doing?
What are we doing? So Strata is our first proper source book for the game. We had Black Magic, which had a bunch of more occult rules and stuff and so rules for playing a blood witch who have kind of a magical blood disease. But it was not so setting heavy. What's important to us is to communicate that setting through rules rather than just sit down and say, all right, everyone, here's a comprehension test. We'd much rather communicate it to you through rules, but that's not always possible. So in Strata, we're focusing on the highest and lowest echelons of society. So the poorest districts like the Undercity, Derelictus, Perch, which is nailed to the side of Spire, as well as shanty towns, where the people worship small gods and their weapons and armor. And the high society elements, so like Amaranth, which is permanently frozen by weird high elf magic, and the Silver Quarter, which is fantasy Las Vegas crossed with fantasy Venice. Oh. And we've taken basically we cut something from every chapter in the game, and we've taken these ideas and developed more onto them and thought about, well, if we're setting games in this area, what's the tension, what's the rub, what can players see? And in addition to that, and so like we've got rules. It's not just, oh, here's some fun ideas for things, but like we have there's a character class called Idol, who is a bleeding edge artist and cultist, and we have different abilities depending on which school of art they're following within the Ivory Collective, in like shadow magic and what's the one? Anti-tropolonismancy. There we go.
Yeah.
Who believe the Spire is the ugliest thing in the world.
Interesting.
But aside from that, we've also hired 9 other authors to do adventures for us. And so, like, we've had an incredible response from the community, which has grown up around Spire. We've got a nice Discord, and it's really lovely hearing people playing their games and like hearing people write back to us. And so what we wanted to do was give people the opportunity within our community and outside that to take Spire and expand upon it and take, oh, well, what about idea X and idea Y, and we push them together. What happens? What happens when this faction fights this faction? And so we put out an open call for writers about 3 months ago, I think, and just said, if you have an idea, give us a pitch in 100 words or fewer. And we got about 120, I think, about 100. And we're publishing 9 of them, which is really cool. Well, we're publishing 4 of them, and then we have stretch goals.
So you'll publish 9 of them, don't worry. It'll be fine.
For sure. Yeah,
it'll be fine.
Hopefully we should do well. But we've got really fantastic set. We've got Kira McGran is doing one of our stretch goals. She wrote this wonderful game about lesbian snakes bedding down for winter. We've got Helen Gould is doing. So Helen Gould did one of the settings for Cthulhu Dark.
Okay.
She is doing effectively Downton Abbey, but all the posh people are undead elves, and all of the servants are ministry agents who've snuck in to try and overthrow one house. And it's it's really cool. We've got one about running an illegal newspaper, one about rescuing artistic surgery victims, one about being kicked out of effectively Kowloon walled city and fighting the eviction notice. There's so many cool things.
Oh, this sounds so good.
Oh, we have 2 new classes, and one of them's a journalist.
Oh,
there you go.
This is so
nice.
Good. Oh, I'm so excited for this. So I feel like I heard that there's an SRD too.
Yes, that should be out. Now, honestly, we're waiting for the final round of corrections to go through from our designer. There's a few tweaks, but we've got the SRD done for the core system. We're calling it the resistance system, because Spire, as hopefully people will learn as we go through the podcast, relies on resistances. And characters accrue stress to those resistances, and then that solidifies into fallout, and that's where story happens. We wanted to reward people for getting injured and getting in trouble, because that's fun story, rather than punish them by giving them harder rolls. And so we've done a lot of thinking about it, and basically you can do a great deal with the system by changing what those resistances are, what those skills are. And so like what's been really fun is in the SRD, just writing up, say, a list of fallout from a setting which does not exist, and referencing resistances which do not exist, and like building dummy rules around it. So that's been good fun, and hopefully that should be out. That will be out before the Kickstarter launches.
That's awesome.
Very cool. I
love the idea of like taking those fallouts and then like building your setting out from there. Like I feel like that's a really good way to start. It's so cool. I'm very excited for this.
And before we get into more things, what sort of things do we need to play this game? What sort of materials do we need?
You will need pencil and paper and a 4D10, a D8, and a D6.
Very simple.
I believe. That's about it, really. Also, like, traditionally the GM keeps track of everyone's fallout and stress. Because it's a bit more exciting that way, we find, and it's slightly easier to do some of the mechanics. Is that something where it's basically hidden to the players at that point, or? It's occluded, certainly. Like, they can ask if there's some sort of mechanic which relies on them having X number of stress, then, you can inform them. But generally, like, rather than saying, oh, you take 3 blood stress, it's more, oh, your head's spinning and you can feel your teeth ringing. Ooh. That sort of thing. Oh, that you can taste tin in your mouth. Was a trick we learned from Unknown Armies. I very much think that Spire is the game we wrote because we weren't allowed to write the new edition of Unknown Armies.
How rude of them.
I know. I mean, I didn't apply, but still, they should have come around.
They should have called you. Did they not know?
Yeah. I don't know. It's rude.
We've talked a little bit about it already, but one of our questions that we like to start with is, what do characters do in this game? So in D&D, you start with an adventuring party. In Masks, you have a team of superheroes. Like, what is the core of what your characters are going to be doing in a game of Spire?
You'll be fighting the power, I think, is the core idea. The title is the subtitle is Spire: The City Must Fall, which was a last minute addition because it looked good on the cover. And basically, the players will be leading or creating a rebellion in some way. They'll be trying to overthrow the government. That's the ideal high level result. Generally, it's done on a more small scale. And so they'll be assassinating and then replacing government officials with useful patsies, or they'll be taking back control of a district or eliminating a particular problem in some way. But it's either a grassroots rebellion, which happens slowly, or some sort of full violent riot. I'm going to say 1 in 2 Spire games ends in a district-wide riot. But that might just be because we like them.
I'm all for rioting. Rioting is never the wrong choice.
No. That's the spirit. Oh, and also, you'll be hiding from the police a lot. The other thing is that you're not allowed to do what you're doing, obviously, because you're running a rebellion. But things like certain character, like most of your weapons, you can't carry out on the street legally. It's not like D&D where things, you can't bring that massive death killer sword into the pub. You'll have to leave it outside. It's like you'll be arrested and thrown in jail, that sort of thing. So there's a great deal of secrecy, and just like the act of getting a gun somewhere is itself a mission, a story.
Wow. So aside from this game being completely tailored to Amelia, what would you say is unique about Spire, aside from a few things that we have talked about already?
Well, okay. I mean, there's the resistances, as we mentioned earlier. So the game is focused around what you have to lose. I think that's we basically wrote a game where it's the same mechanics for losing hit points as it is for losing money, as it is for losing reputation, as it is for getting in debt, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing as well is, I don't know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, our game is unique. I mean, most games are unique because people have written them and messed around with it. And our game certainly, one thing which we wanted to do was give the Drow a fair go, in that they've not been really, they've had, to put it mildly, a problematic history in Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to establish them as people. And so being able to have the Drow people and the high elves, the ones which traditionally the humans interact with and who bestow knowledge, are weird and alien and strange. And that's the thing, it's everything's propaganda. No matter what you write, it is going to reflect your views in some way. And so this is written as a propaganda piece from the Drow, saying, the Elfir are cruel and evil, and the Elfir are strange, and they have to take drugs to feel sad, that sort of thing. And they might just be, your standard occupying force. And there's plenty of wiggle room to how you want to play that, but primarily we wanted to make some interesting Drow.
Very cool.
So normally at this point, we go and look up a Wikipedia article and talk about the history of the game. But you're here, so we can make you do that.
Yes. Gods, I'd really like a Wikipedia article at some point. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, maybe after this chat, I can go write one because I'll have all the information. So I want to know, how long has this game been around? How long has the idea been around? How did this happen?
Okay.
All of it.
All of it. I'll do my best to summarize as quickly as possible. The idea for Spire arose, so I used to play Dark Heresy. I used to run Dark Heresy, the Warhammer 40,000 game. I really like the ideas behind Dark Heresy. I love the setting. The mechanics leave a little something to be desired, in my opinion, like success. I desire success and it does not happen.
Yes.
And they're very, they're very complicated, and they suffer from rules creep as you go through the different, Rogue Trader, Black Crusade, etc., etc. But I ran a couple of campaigns of Dark Heresy and really liked it. And what I was interested in doing was writing a spy game of some kind in which you manipulated assets. And so, and because Dark Heresy is a spy game, it just doesn't really have the rules to do it. And so I wanted to have I've made this connection and I can burn this asset. I can risk this asset, that sort of thing. And that was, 5 years ago. I had the idea, and that went through a couple of iterations and never got anywhere. And then I was like, hang on a sec, I can't write this game because Games Workshop will sue me. So I was like, okay, well, what if we had Dark Elves who were secret police for the High Elves and some sort of caste system? And I had this sort of daft game with lots of different playing cards, which you had playing cards and you sort of built up the city around them. Still got the notes somewhere in a big A3. I used to work on A3 bits of paper before I used Google Docs. And so that then very quickly just got pushed to the side and I forgot about it. And then we had a Kickstarter for Goblin Quest, which is the Daft one. We had a Kickstarter for a game called Unbound, which is a universal role-playing game, which are, as it turns out, impossible to sell. Because you're not allowed to discuss the setting. It's pretty good, Unbound. I'm pretty proud of it, but it is.
It sounded super cool. Like that's how I first heard about you, was because you were on Talking Tabletop with Jim McClure. And like that game sounded so cool, and then I missed the Kickstarter by the time I had listened to the episode.
It's really neat, and like Unbound did world creation and player creation and character creation and plot creation and enemy creation all at the same time, and so you get this fantastic session 0. Really proud of that.
Oh, nice.
But unfortunately, we couldn't sell it because you have to say, well, people are asking you, what sort of games can I play? And we're like,
all of them?
All of them? Anything you can imagine. Give us some money.
I mean, which is really interesting to me, though, because like there are plenty of generic systems out there. Like you have GURPS and you have like Fantasy Flight just did Genesis, and you know, like it's not like a thing people don't want.
I think it's not a thing people don't want. I think that it was difficult to find the new one in the market to sort of break into the market, because Fate's already doing story, Genesis is already doing weirdo dice, GURPS is already doing the sort of people who fetishize calculators, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that take.
Just putting a little gingham dress on a calculator and taking it out for a picnic. And it's and Unbound was story focused, snacky combat, lots of pushes and pulls, and like was heavily inspired by MMO mechanics, honestly, and that sort of thing. So like big boss battles and like using fight tactics and that sort of thing. We were still finding our feet. It sold okay. We didn't work out how to sell it. There wasn't a community. The community didn't spring up around it, and we didn't curate one. But then I was getting into releasing one-page games, and we decided that if we wanted to make a proper go of this, we had to have a proper game. We had to do something which would sell and which would have a big book attached to it, and which we could really stretch our legs. And so the original title of Spire was Spindle, which I'm glad we changed. I was on a bit of A3 paper, and I was sort of drawing it, and like drawing a big spire and drawing an elf with cool sunglasses on. I was like, dark elves must wear cool sunglasses and hats. And so it became, this spy game arose out of that again, and I just had the core ideas. And that was when I brought Chris in. We'd worked together on, Unbound in the past, and we were basically both looking for a job, and we were like, could we do this for a job? We make this happen? And so the pair of us did a scant 17 iterations of the rules.
Oh.
Just so many different versions of the rules before we got to the current one. And we didn't even playtest most of them. We'd write up most of a version of the rules and go, how does defense work? Oh, it's easy. We're going to have to do the whole thing again, aren't we? And then we just throw out most of what so that's the thing, like we ended up throwing out a lot of the mechanics but keeping the fluff, and the fiction, the world built up and percolated around the rules, and then what we started doing was creating rules which would help us tell that story. And then we ended up on iteration 17, which was a D10 pool system. Iteration 16 was a D20 system, which we narrowly missed.
Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, close one. Honestly, it was not ideal. And so the final version we have is very, rules light isn't quite the word, because there's quite a lot of rules in the book, but they're more character rules, in that they're powers you can have or ways in which you break reality. The core idea is basically there's a paragraph of text which explains everything you need to do in the game. You roll the dice and consult the table, and that's how the game works.
Yeah, it feels really clean is the word that I would use.
Thank you.
I don't think that I've ever picked up a system that quickly, because I'm one of those people that like I can read a rule book and then I go, okay, I have no idea how to play this game still. I need to actually do it. And so I played it at Gen Con, and we had a very short, 2-hour game.
Yes, Dylan ran a game, didn't he?
What? Yes,
Dylan ran
exactly.
A game.
That's
I like Dylan very much. He was in the first playtest.
I thought about asking him if he wanted to do this tonight, and then I ran out of time, and then it was time to record. I was going to see if last minute he wanted to join us. But yeah, he ran a game for us, and it was very silly. But it was like probably the quickest I've ever picked up rules to a game, and still have not really read the rules section of the book. I've read some of the other stuff. But
fair.
I've played it like 3 or 4 times now. So like I'm doing fine, I think.
The way Chris and I approach games is that we never read the full rule book. We never, like, we don't want to sit down and do comprehensions. So like, much like we didn't want people to have to learn the setting, we want people to get a rough overview of the rules and then just wing it, because that's how people actually run games. Rather than oh, actually stop, let me consult the rules. Like, generally you're about 3 glasses of wine in, you don't really care about that, you just want to tell the story. And so we wanted to make a game which would just let us do that.
Which is, it's perfect, because I think it was probably like an hour into our game, and our GM was like, okay, I need you to roll. And I was like, oh, right, we're playing a game. I remember that now. Because they're just having fun, like goofing around and, petting a hyena. Yeah. Like you do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So can we go over some basic terms and concepts that we'll need to know before we create the characters?
We have a list.
Yeah, this is my list of things that I thought maybe people might need to know. So if you have anything else,
we have an updated list. Yeah, we have. The missing creator, Chris and I went through your notes today. Your incredibly detailed notes. And
thank you.
And Chris, unfortunately, again a little bit ill, but was well enough this afternoon to go through with me and write intelligent answers to all of your questions. Some basic terms and concepts used in Spire. Skills are doing actions. So they're things like sneak or steal or fight. We have a list of 9 and they're all very straightforward. Mm-hmm. If you have the skill, you add a D10 to your pool when you do the thing. They're binary on off. Domains are similar to skills, but much broader. So domains are related to areas of the city or areas of knowledge or certain kinds of people. So, for example, a cult is a domain, but also low society is a domain, and technology is a domain. And if you have access to a skill and access to a relevant domain, you can use both on a relevant check. Knacks are if you get a skill or domain you already have. They are another word for specialties. They're just specialties from World of Darkness, and we didn't want to use the same word, so they're knacks. You can roll an extra D10 when you do the thing if you've got this one specific thing you're good at. Other things which we need to mention: Durances. So your durance is how you served under the Elfir, or High Elves. And that's, we've got a big list of those at the start of the character creation, and that gives you a little bit of history and a few extra stats and skills. Bonds are your relationship with PCs and NPCs, which are, and our relationship together as PCs is a big, beefy bit of character creation, working out how we sync up in that way. Mm-hmm. And, finally, abilities is everything that a character can have that isn't that. Isn't anything else. So all of your advances, all your character options, all your spells, all your special rules tweaks, they're all classed as abilities. And that, I think, is all the terms you need to know.
I didn't put resistances on the list, but do we want to kind of explain those a little bit?
Yes, we should. Thank you. They're crucial. So resistances are, as mentioned previously, they are things you have to lose. And in Spire, we have 5 resistances, which are, see if I can get them in the right order: blood, mind, silver, reputation, and shadow. Blood is physical damage and exhaustion. Mind is sanity, stability, madness. Silver is how much money you have. It's more of a cash flow thing, credit rating, than actually, pocket full of gold. Reputation is your overall social standing in Spire, and shadow is how close the secret police are to kicking your door and shooting you in the street. And, interesting. Characters will have certain, what we call free slots and resistances. So I've got the book open in front of me here, and the bound has blood +1, shadow +2. And what this means is they have these 2 free slots which they can allocate stress to, and it doesn't count towards their total stress when working out if any of those, if their stress develops into a fallout which has definite story ramifications.
Okay.
I think that's us.
I think that's most of it.
Glorious. Shall we make some people?
Yeah, let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
So, what have either of you got any ideas about the sort of thing you'd like to play?
Yeah, I've got some ideas. I was looking through the book earlier today and was drumming up some ideas.
Okay, what you got?
Let's see. pulling up my notes.
You want to do the bound.
Yeah, I kind of do.
I know you don't want me to be right, but you do.
I just finished writing the bound section for Strata today as well. We've got a list of the bound are vigilantes who worship the gods in their clothes and their ropes and their armor, but their blades, they have to find a different god and imprison it inside the blade. And so I just finished writing today a list of gods and the blades that imprison them in Spire.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's kind of neat, yeah.
I'm so excited.
It just writes itself. It's really neat.
So good.
Yeah, you had me at Vigilante, so.
Yeah, they are there. They have trademark red binding ropes they wear around them, so their nickname in playtest was Shibari Batman.
Nice.
Perfect.
That is awesome. Okay, so before we start selecting all of our stuff, what is the first thing that we would need to do when we want to start creating a character in Spire?
You would pick out your class first. That's the most important thing. So there are, I think, 9 classes in the book. I haven't actually counted them. 9-ish classes in the book, and that they inform your role in the party, your skill list, your abilities, that sort of thing. So they're definitely the most important thing to pick out. In terms of striking a balance and that sort of thing, we don't necessarily have much of a. Like, you don't need a tank, a healer, a rogue, a wizard, that sort of thing. It's much broader, but if one of you's playing someone who's fascinated with high society and infiltrating Elfir parties, and one of you's playing a heretic worshipper of a god of death who has a slumbering hyena chained to their wrist, then there might be some difficulty bringing those together as the GM. Mm-hmm. But, it can work. I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it happen.
You can figure it out.
Opposites attract, so...
So usually we let our guests pick first. Do you know what you want to do?
I was going to let you pick first.
Okay.
It's perfectly fine to pass.
Yes, I will pass. Actually, I'm gonna pick something which complements your 2 choices.
Wonderful.
All right. So Ryan, you're going to do the bound.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be sticking with the bound. I saw a couple other ones that were kind of piquing my interest, but the type of character I'm looking to make this time, the bound fits a lot better.
So normally I would pick the Vermisian Sage, but I'm not going to do that because that's what I'm playing in the other game. Okay. So I'm going to have to not pick a nerd character. I don't know how I'm going to do that.
Any character can be a nerd if you believe hard enough.
Yeah. I kind of want to do the Carrion Priest.
That so I was thinking about doing Knight.
Ooh, perfect.
And so I think this gives us kind of a low society party, which works quite well. I can see this. I see us hanging out in the bottom end of Spire. But the bound is sneaky. The Carrion Priest is anything but sneaky because they have a big hyena. And the Knight is even less sneaky than that. So I kind of like the idea of a slight group of misfits. That works for me. I like that.
All right.
So
we have picked out our character types.
Mm-hmm.
We have our paper. We're not making a ton of noise with our papers.
Oh, I've got notes that I'm typing, so...
Oh. So you have clicky keyboard sounds and stuff.
Yeah, I've got clickety keyboard. Sorry, yeah. I didn't want to print the thing because it's 1:30 a.m.
Let's see here. So then from here, do we just go through and we select our Durances and just fill in some boxes, right?
Yeah, so you fill in some boxes. The things which you'll need to go through are there's resistances, which you take a note of. There is whatever your refresh is, which is how you clear stress primarily, and your class skills and domains. There might be some equipment choices, but they're generally not too in depth. And then you'll note down your core abilities for your class, and then we'll pick out our advances. So rules as written, you get 2 low advances.
Oh.
I should also note, we have a bunch of extra advances in the game, which are like little prestige classes you can stick on to any character.
Oh wow.
And you only you don't need to have the prereq requirements they start on page 69. Nice. They start on page 69. And they are the prereqs are fictional rather than mechanical, so you don't have to have strength 16 or anything to get in. There are a few interesting ones there. You could be an ex-city guard, or you could worship the yawning hole of nihilism in the middle of Spire, or you could beat people. That's one.
Oh.
Private investigator. There's another one. They have the medium advanced too drunk to care, which is quite nice. Which just lets you take reputation of Fallout to get rid of any other Fallout.
Right.
Which is nice. But yes, I will. I think
is it in the other book where you can like be filled with bees?
Yes, that's in Black Magic.
Okay.
You can take the Deep Apiarist extra advance, which replaces all of your organs with bees.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's gross, but you do it to fight evil.
I guess it makes sense.
It's for a good cause. Bees for a cause.
Just made of bees.
I think, seeing as I wrote the game, I'm going to break the rules a little bit. And I'm also going to give each of us a medium advance, because I think it might be kind of fun to play with that. And seeing as we're not actually going to play these characters, they can sort of simulate the 2 or 3 sessions.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Hey, we can't argue with that. So I was looking through the Durances, and there's quite a few here. But it also looks like you can choose not to have a Durance.
Yeah, you can choose to have somehow gotten out of it. Like, you might come from a wealthy family. Sorry?
I said it's a bold move.
You can choose to come from a wealthy family who like purchased your Durance and had you serve somewhere else, or you can have just been so far off the radar that you were never picked up by the authorities.
Interesting.
Or you just you ran wild. There's no particularly sort of huge in-game ramifications. It's the sort of thing which if a player was interested in it, then we'd talk about it.
Cool.
But it's all happened in the past.
Very cool. I think I have my Durance, but I want to wait.
What are you doing?
I want to wait because I want to see what everybody else is doing quick.
I gotta
before
go back
that.
to those.
All right. As a bound, I get +1 to blood and +2 to shadow.
And the idea is whatever your class is now is what you are doing after your Durance, right?
Yeah, pretty much so. Or definitely recently. The Durance kicks in about the age of we just say when the drow are of age. So imagining anywhere between 13 and 18. Right. So my core abilities as a knight are pub crawler. So once a game, I name a nearby bar, pub, or inn where the landlord knows me, but it isn't clear whether they like me or not. I have the Law of the Docks, which means I am legally allowed to carry a large bladed weapon, because I am technically a police officer, but more actually a gangster.
Interesting.
And I have the pick a fight skill. And so once per situation, I can ask the GM, who's the best person to pick a fight with if I want to A, win, B, make a good impression, or C, cause a distraction. And those are my core things. Oh, also, I'm a member of a knightly order.
Oh, nice.
The thing about knightly orders is that they, pretty much all of the knightly orders, operate out of pubs which share the name of the order, and pretty much all of the pubs have really saucy nicknames, which we came up with.
Oh.
But this is a family podcast. So you have to consult your Spire book for this sort of carry-on grade, eyebrow waggling raunch we put in there. But yes, I'm a member, as a knight, I'll be a member of a knightly order / pub, and I will be expected to effectively tend bar in there, in exchange for them doing me favors and that sort of thing. But it's that's more up to the GM and again how much they want to make it happen.
Okay. So I was looking at the core traits here on the bound, and I get the resistances, skills, and domains. Those are pretty self-explanatory. But what does it mean by refresh?
Okay, so the refresh is it's kind of think of it like your class's core action, and when you perform your refresh action, you'll refresh either D3, D6, or D8 stress depending on how well you do it.
Oh,
by refresh that means you just clear it straight off your sheet. And these are a way to sort of reward role-playing and reward the sort of role thing we want the class to do. So for the knight, mine is engage in reckless excess. The bound, what's the bound?
Bring a criminal to justice.
Nice. And the carrion priest?
Complete a hunt and take your quarry.
Ooh.
Oh, so yours overlap quite neatly there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could get drunk nearby.
We could celebrate afterwards.
Yeah. I guess you should have some sort of equipment choice. So as far as the bound goes, if I can remember, you just choose whether your weapon does more damage or whether you can hide it easier. Either you have like a knife or a cleaver, or you have a big axe.
Mm-hmm.
The Carrion Priest has some slightly more interesting choices to make, including the prey hook.
Oh yeah, I totally picked that one.
The knowledge prey hook. It's stunning as well, so it's actually well OP.
Nice.
The prey hook can basically reduce anyone to... It can reduce the difficulty of anyone you're fighting to 0, and it only goes up to 2. So it's very good if you're fighting elite guards, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be picking the God Knife for my my weapon.
Okay.
I like the core abilities of the Carrion Priest because I have a hyena companion.
Oh,
and that's
nice.
very important to me to have an animal friend. Because there's nothing GMs hate more than animal friends. At least in my experience. I maybe have just had GMs who are like, only small animals. Because I did have a game where I had a lion.
That's a very special friend.
Right. Well, you can't take your lion into the tea house. Like, they don't like that.
It depends on the tea house, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, who's going to tell that lion no? Like, you look him in the eye and say no. So I'm pretty excited. I'm going to have this hyena.
Cool.
And then a Lay of the Land, which is being a trained hunter. So you can name up to 3 features or opportunities that your allies can take advantage of, which is super useful.
Nice.
It is really nice. It also gives from a game design point of view, it lets us give whoever's playing the Carrion Priest get to sort of star in the combat scene a little bit, or to give them some more authority over framing the scene. You'd be surprised at how many explosive barrels there are in Spire, despite it being just an industrial society. They have a lot of explosive red barrels.
You got to have those laying around. Might as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Never know.
I've chosen so my equipment. I can choose. I can get a greatsword, a knightly lance, which we put in as a joke because it's funny to see someone use a lance when they're not on a horse, and a sword and pistol, a grackler pistol. Most of our guns are named after birds because I think birds have cool names. And so I have chosen the sword and grackler pistol, which is high damage, but you only get 1 shot with it because it's old.
Very cool. Yeah, and my core abilities are surprise infiltration. So nothing can keep you out. Once per session, insert yourself into a situation where you are not currently present, so long as there's some conceivable way you could get in there. That's really interesting. It's just if there's a scene in the game and you're like, I think I want to be there.
Yeah.
You kind of can.
The GM has to get really careful not to have NPCs talk to each other about their wicked plans, and the bound just like...
Yep.
I was in the rafters all along.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is that once per session?
Once per session, yep.
Okay. So you don't want to use it to just like creepily pop up behind people.
Right.
Which is
most
totally what I would use
do.
for.
Yeah, most people just use it for that, and that's a fair use.
You might as well.
Turn around in the swivel chair. I've been here the whole time.
But I was sitting in that chair. Yes, you were.
That's amazing.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts and guests, or even some of our character sheets. Character Creation Cast can be found on Twitter at CreationCast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you like the systems discussed and wish to purchase them, links to the products can be found in the show notes. Also, check the notes or the website for cool stuff to go with each character, such as dice or mixtapes. Thanks for joining us, And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We will see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs. Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you'll find other great shows like Design Doc.
Join hosts Hannah Schaefer and Evan Rowland as they redesign a role-playing game. Design Doc is an experiment in public participatory analog game design. It's fun, it's messy, and you're invited along for the ride.